So UPSC has came out with the results of mains 2022 exams, and every time such results are announced, whether for mains or for the final list, I go through some complex emotions and feelings. On the one hand, I am extremely delighted to see the positive results of some of my students, and on the other hand, I am equally pained to see the negative results or the failures of some of my students. And it's really very painful thing to see that thing happening. And especially my focus is right now on those students for whom this was their last attempt, and their situation is really very miserable. And let us acknowledge that. Let us first of all acknowledge that. And I feel bad about it also, that as in life, and just similar, and even in this field of competitive exams, it holds true that success has many fathers and failure has none. So yes, when some of the students who appear for these exams, they get through, then the whole world rushes and scrambles to get to be associated with them. But what about those who fail? What about those who are left out? Who cares for them, and who looks after them, and who even acknowledges that these people exist? I really wish if I could do something. I really wish if I could do something for these students. At least give them a hug. But more more I wanted. At least I wish if I was in a position, or in a government, or in some organization where I could do something for those students who who have engaged the most pristine years of their life in this journey of UPSC. The journey of UPSC is extremely excruciating. It calls for so many sacrifices. And as I've seen, people, they do invest a lot of their efforts, their energies. They sacrifice a lot. Their families, their personal life, they sacrifice. Even their health at times they sacrifice. So what? Where do they come at the last when they fail? And our government is so insensitive about this. Uh, I would call that this is competitive savagery or institutionalized barbarism. That the government knows that, okay, there are lakhs of students who are preparing for it, lakhs and lakhs of people who want to get into these civil services. That is why it is treating them, all these aspirants, with such cruelty, I would say. Why? Because all the after all these years, the government does not even acknowledge their efforts. I believe that at least some sort of acknowledgement, some sort of institutional acknowledgement, some sort of certificate at least can be given to these students. At least give them some certificate that they have cleared prelims, or give them some rebate or some preference, or let the first semester or first year in some MA program or in some postgraduate program be waived off for them. I'm 100% sure that all those students who clear prelims, or who invest so many years of their life in this process of UPSC exams preparation, they are far more capable to sit and clear the first semester or first year exams of programs in political science or public administration or history or sociology and things like that. So at least this academic fraternity and the government should do something about those students who clear uh, prelims or day after mains. A few years ago, there was this talk, and the government also came up with this proposal that students who reach till interview stages, they would be given some sort of preferences in PSU's recruitment. That idea is still not completely translated into very fruitful reality. But okay, that was a good gesture, and I wish that something similar takes place also for students who clear prelims. And apart from that, this whole UPSC journey is and this exam preparation is something which is, I would say, is a very, it's, I get this feeling as if it's something sort of cannibalism, or some sort of, as I said, barbarism. That is the kind of competition which is there. And I'm moved, I'm touched by the kind of things which are happening. I was recently in Bihar. I had gone to Bihar for some reason, and I was around 100 kilometers from Patna, and in it was a very rural kind of setup over there, and there I met a guy who was preparing for UPSC. He he sort of he was he felt empowered by meeting me. Just by meeting me, he touched my feet, and I was moved. I would say that I didn't know how to respond to a situation like that. uh, he was he had a lot of financial problems, and he told me that uh, uh, I'm working. I had been working as a laborer, uh, as a for on a daily as a daily wage laborer, and he used to earn only 200 rupees per day. 6,000 rupees he used to earn monthly, and his work was what he said कि सर वो मकान बनाने में वो छत बनाने में, that is the kind of hard labor which he was investing, and still he wanted to prepare for these competitive exams. That was his spirit. But I was just thinking that with these 6,000 rupees, and after doing 12 hours or 14 hours of labor in a day, how would he be able to sit in this exam where lakhs of aspirants are there? It's a very, the competition is really very brutal. And then he told me, okay, sir, sir, I got a new job where he's working in a shop, a computer shop. And he said there's थोड़ा online printing वगैरह का काम यहाँ पे रहता है, and photo print out and tickets or something like that. And whenever he gets some spare time for himself, he says कि मैं खान सर की वीडियो देख लेता हूँ, and things like that. I'm preparing for these exams. And then when you talk about old Rajendra Nagar, where people from all over in the country they come and prepare, there are in 15,000 rupees you cannot even find a good room. You need at least 15,000 rupees or 16,000 rupees or things like that. That much money is required just to find a separate room for yourself in old Rajendra Nagar. And if you talk about the fees of all these coaching institutes, then how would दैट काइंड ऑफ स्टूडेंट, वो 6,000 जो अर्न कर रहा है पत्थर उठाकर, ईंटें उठाकर, वो कैसे उन स्टूडेंट से कॉम्पीट कर पाएगा जो जो लाखों रुपए फीस में खर्च कर देते हैं? दिस इज अ वेरी अनफेयर सिस्टम. एंड सपोज एंड सी दैट स्टूडेंट टच्ड माई फीट. मैं बिहार एयरपोर्ट पे भी था. देयर ऑल्सो आई मेट सम स्टूडेंट्स who were who who were extremely excited to see me. But uh, I get calls also, and I am a very small entity in this whole this industry of UPSC. But even if hypothetically I'm able to help the students, suppose 10 students come to me, and I teach them some tricks, and these 10 students they are able to get selected in the exam. I have helped these 10 students, but these 10 students have got selected at the cost of some other 10 students. So while I deserve the credit for helping these 10 students, should I not deserve the blame for being the cause of expelling some other 10 students out from somewhere else? Because at the end of day, the seats are limited. We may be having, like, say, for a rough figure of 5 lakh students preparing for this exam, and only 500 seats, let us assume, or it varies, some it is 700, some it is 1000. So these 700 seats are there, 4 lakh students are there. Number of seats is fixed. No coaching institute can increase these number of seats. So if you're helping someone, then someone else is being at a loss. The situation is so tricky. Think like this, that it's like a Titanic. It's a ship, where there are lakhs of people and there are only 700 lifeboats. Only 700, I would say, seats on the lifeboats. So when the ship is sinking, out of those 4 lakh people who are traveling on the ship, only 700 will be able to survive. Now, as a person who is in this, who is doing these things as a hobby or as a I would say as a pastime also, or even if as a full time person, I would say I or any other person can only help you find a lifeboat, but I cannot increase the number of those lifeboats. So at the end of day, there would be people who would be drowned. लोग होंगे ऐसे जो डूब जाएंगे. एंड इफ़ आई हेल्प समवन इट मीन्स कि जिसकी लाइफ बोट, जिसकी सीट मैंने आपको दिलवाई, किसी और की सीट रह गई, कोई और छूट गया. So I don't understand. See, what I'm telling is very much antithetical to my own interests. My own interests lie in this thing that all throughout the country there is a huge rage and desire for UPSC and civil service exams. People go mad after that, so that when I ask for fees for them for my program, then they are ready to shell out any amount of money without any hesitation. That should be my interest. But what I'm saying right now is against my interest. I think that the desire and the rush for these competitive exams needs to be it needs to be reduced some way. It needs to be brought down to reasonable levels. Just things cannot go on and should not go on like this, that lakhs of people, they are mindlessly, they are with all their heart, with all their energies, they're investing all these years of their life in it. And yes, see, for motivating, and we should be positive, we should be giving the hopes, which we do. When people fail, when fail, then we tell them about, okay, the anecdotes related to Edison or Abraham Lincoln or Abdul Kalam Azad or even Amitabh Bachchan, that how these people failed in the initial years of their life, and after failures there are success. Failures are a stepping stone of success. We do tell them, we talk about these things, we talk about qualities related to perseverance. But the fact is that all these lacks of aspirants who are there, they have some these similar ideas. So it is impossible that all those students who prepare for this exam can get success. And this, and furthermore, there are so many so many complexities in the examination system, and I don't think this is a very fair, very impartial system. I don't think that can happen. And many a times we see that how so many capable students, they fail to make through. Even this year, even last year, I myself was mentoring some students whom I believed were really very capable. They had good intellect, they had good knowledge, but they could not clear the exams. This exam and the way the evaluation system operates, the way the questions are drafted, these are not completely fair. So when 14,000 or 10,000 students are writing, so many different examiners are checking the copies, evaluating them. A lot of subjectivity is involved, and it is quite possible that a lot of good students who really deserve to be in it are left out. What else? A lot of these things are there in my mind, and for those students who have some attempts left, I think you need to be very cautious of whether you should write the exam next year or not. If you have written only once or twice, and if you're left with 4 or 5 attempts, then yeah, you can easily go for the next year attempt. And if you're left with only 1 or 2 attempts, then Taking a break is not a bad idea. Taking a break for 1 or 2 years so that you can recharge yourself emotionally or physically, and where you can also try to figure out what your weaknesses are, then taking a break is not a bad idea. And again, I would say this, what I'm telling you right now is against my own interests. My own interests lie in saying this thing that come on, prepare, get into this preparation mode. My interests lie there. And I think that is the place where the interest of all the coaching institutes also lie. Every time when the results come out, then all these big coaching institutes, they publish success stories of all the students who graduated, or rather who were involved with them. And tomorrow, in fact, you will see the same coaching institutes coming up with their programs of interview guidance. But what about those who are left behind? What about those? So जो बीत गई सो बात गई. There was this poem by Harivansh Rai Bachchan, and I remember its line, and I think it's a very motivating poem. जीवन में एक सितारा था, माना वह बेहद प्यारा था, वह टूट गया तो टूट गया, अंबर के आनंद को देखो, कितने इसके तारे टूटे, कितने इसके प्यारे छूटे, पर बोलो टूटे तारों पर कब अंबर शोक मनाता है, जो बीत गई सो बात गई. So for those who have lost in the final attempt, I would say that have hopes, and see, when uh, we are preparing, or when you're preparing to get into power, and this UPSC journey or UPSC preparation is definitely some manifestation of your desire to get power or move up the ladder hierarchies, the hierarchies in power structures. Then this journey, or this power politics, is a game of snakes and ladders, and there's a huge element of luck. And even when you get into the services, for that matter, consider the case, for example, of a person who gets this IPS or IAS or some sort of that job, and he spends 40 years or 30 years of his life into this service with full dedication. He ignores his family, he ignores his health, he gets diseases like BP, diabetes, and still he's relentlessly 12 hours, 14 hours, non stop, 7 days a week, he's working for the public cause. And just a few months before retirement, then there is some incident in his jurisdiction, uh, where he's administrating. There is some crime, and there is a crime on which he has no control. Some person murders someone else, and the political leadership of that area, of that state, they, just to save their face, or just to give some sort of instant gratification to this uh, these to the net citizens, they they remove that, or they suspend that administrative officer just a few months before his uh, his retirement. Now, all his remaining years of life, he has got no way to prove to the people whom he know that he was sincere. Now, these things are not hypothetical. If you read newspaper, you will find that yes, these things happen a lot of times. So, what about the pain of that person? So, if you have invested 4 or 5 years of your life and you are really feeling bad about it, then think about the plight of that person who has invested 40 years of his life, dedicated 40 years of his life, sacrificed everything, and still at the end of it, he has to feel the weight of an albatross around his neck, and that albatross whom he did not kill, but someone else came and just threw it around his neck. So there are these occupational hazards. Think that these are the occupational hazards, and these occupational hazards, they start the day when you start preparing for UPSC. They start not only when you get into the services, but they also start the day when you get into the services. you get into these preparation mode. So some students, they are little fortunate that yes, they get through in the first or second attempt, and the vast number of others, they are not so much fortunate. And while I was talking about I was giving you the analogy of that lifeboat and the sinking ship. I told you that there are only 700 lifeboats. No, there are not even 700 lifeboats. If we get into this reality that people get into this UPSC journey, preparation journey, they want to be all of them. They want to be IAS or IPS or IFS. Nobody comes here to prepare for postal services or uh, railways or accounts. People want to get these top three, and if we count the number of IAS, there the seats, they are not even 90 or 100 around. They are only around 100. So the number of lifeboats is really very less than the number of sincere students who are traveling through this ship. And this is the brutal journey. So uh, be strong, have faith in yourself. If this was your last attempt, have faith in yourself. I understand it would be a very painful thing, and if you are left with some attempts, then think about it whether you should invest the next year into it or not, or should you have some backup plans or not. And if you are prepared, if you are not if you're not any of these, and if you're just a person who are listening this video, and if you're not even preparing for UPSC, if you have not even yet started preparing for UPSC and you're just a beginner, if that's the case, then get into this journey, but with a lot of courage. You should have a lot of courage, that be prepared to face failures. If you have the courage to face failures, then only get into this journey. Okay, so this was just, I had some thoughts. If you feel like talking to or if you feel any of my students, and if you feel like having some discussion around these things, then feel free to drop me a message on WhatsApp. I'll call you back whenever it's possible. So okay, this that's all. I hope this was helpful to you in some ways. Thank you.